Hey guys, here we are in Module 7. We are getting so close to the end of the program, and this module has some excellent and really rich material in it about how to not be a united front. Kind of controversial, but let's just jump in and discuss what it is that means and my perspective on it. So the outline of the Module 7 is going to go as follows. First off, we're going to be talking about a relationship dynamic that we can describe using the phrase triangles. We're going to describe what are they, how to get out of them, how these triangles impact our parenting relationships and parenting lives, understanding what are some parenting approaches, what are our options, and what are some of the outcomes that come from these different perspectives, as well as potentially permission to step out of your understanding of a united front. Why people get into it, and what are some of the options to step out of that way of relating to your kiddos. So here in front of us is a triangle. So you heard me describe it in one of the past modules as the way that we manage tension, as one of those chronic ways of diffusing reactivity and anxiety. So here in front of you, you'll see your partner, and then the third point is any other person, object, or activity. Let me describe to you what some of the traits that we can understand as far as how triangles function in relationships. So a triangle is basically tension that exists between two people that ends up being managed by their connection to a third person or object, right? So that means that I'm having a difficult time relating to you, and so I reach out to a third person or object to calm myself down. That might be work, that might be an affair, that might be over focus on my kid, that might be paying attention to the dog, right? Any of these ways are triangles, meaning they're the ways in which we manage tension in an important relationship by reaching out to a third person or object. Right, so this tension ends up being managed by this connection to a third person. Sometimes we'll describe it as outsourcing our discomfort through another person, meaning, hey, I can't handle what's going on between you and I. Let me reach out to, say, my mom to vent, creating kind of a lopsided side against you. The goal is to try to calm ourselves down. It's just that there end up being some unintended consequences from this. Something that we'll notice about the relationship across from you is that it'll have these traits. One, you'll be preoccupied by it, right? You will pay a lot of attention. It'll draw your preoccupation into it. And two, you will be ineffective at changing it. So here in front of you, the arrow is pointing here to this relationship across from you, right? These are the two traits. It is going to be preoccupying to you. That means you're going to be paying a lot more attention to the relationship between your spouse and your oldest child than you are going to be paying attention to maybe between your relationship between you and your spouse. So you're going to be preoccupied by it, and you'll be very ineffective at changing it. In fact, the harder you try to make a change in their relationship. Don't be so naggy. Be more connected. Stop raising your voice. Don't let them be so dependent on you. Whatever it is, the harder you try, the more of their stress, meaning the stress between those two people, the more of their stress you will experience. Right? And the only relationship that I can have any impact on truly are relationships to which I belong. That means my one-on-one relationships. My relationship between myself and my child, and my relationship between myself and my spouse. Those are the two one-on-ones in that triangle. that I'm describing. So, right, that best gift that we can give, if we're nervous about a pattern that's developing between our partner and our child, the best gift we can give is to invest in the one-on-ones that truly do belong to us. Okay, so you're saying, okay, I've gotten myself triangled in. I've gotten myself all wrapped around the axle between the way my partner and my child are interacting. What do I do? Well, this posture called differentiation of self, which basically we've been working on for the entire program. Differentiation of self will get you out of a triangle. Okay, so what is self-differentiation? It is the capacity to be one's own true self. So to be one's own true self, one must know one's own true self, which is what that values exercise was working to invest in. Staying connected to others in our own family and in other relationship systems. It's very difficult to be self-differentiated when we have a lot of isolation. So increasing our resources and staying deeply connected to family can be a helpful way towards that. Knowing your values, like we've been working on. Being principled, meaning when I've understood my values, act from the place that those values are asking. Knowing my own boundaries, knowing what it is that I can and I cannot give, what I am capable of and willing to give. And then respecting the boundaries of others. So, so, so valuable. When someone says no, we honor it. We respect the boundaries that others are setting. So this is a short description of this kind of posture of self-differentiation. So now we can look at this in light of parenting. What does self-differentiation look like, and how does it end up impacting parenting, and what does it have to do with triangles? Okay, so that means when we're self-differentiated and we've gotten looped into a triangle, what do? We stay out of their relationship. It's theirs to manage, not ours. I'm going to say this, and some of you may not like it, but safety is truly the only good reason to get involved in the relationship across from you. I know you may be afraid. I know you may be uncomfortable. I know you may be inconvenienced and you may be stressed by what's happening in that relationship. Which is why self-regulation behaviors are going to be an absolute requirement in order for you to detriangle or stay out of that triangle. So I want you in this consideration of what would this mean in my parenting relationship to stay out of the triangle and to have more self-differentiation. I want you to consider being curious. What is it that you fear would occur if you stepped back? In the relationship between your child and your partner, what is it that you fear would happen if you stepped out of their relationship? I want you to then consider whether or not that's truly something you could control. I want you to know that if it's not in your control, your anxiety and your interference is actually, listen, it's actually the thing that is most likely to make it happen. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, let me give you some examples. Say you fear your child will dislike your partner or be distant from your partner. So you try to ease things by overcompensating for your partner and talking about how great dad is and talking about and easing things about that relationship, right? So in the end, your partner, dad, doesn't end up learning to navigate the difficulty with the child. The child ends up coming to you more often for the most difficult items and actually does end up being distant from dad. Okay, self-fulfilling prophecy. Here's another example. Okay, say you fear opposite. You fear your child will end up being over close or too dependent on mom. So you end up criticizing your partner for making the child too much of a baby, being too sensitive. Your partner, mom, ends up doubting their own ability to manage their relationship Mom gets more and more anxious. She needs more settling down. She's resentful at you for judging and not supporting the struggle. The child actually ends up accidentally meeting more of mom's needs in this situation, thereby, self-fulfilling prophecy, reinforcing the over-close dependent relationship. So you can see here how actually what it is that we fear and getting over involved can end up creating the very thing that we're afraid of. I'm going to offer this reflection in this paradigm shift slide, and I understand that it might not hit you right right at first, but I just want to give it a go. Something that I've noticed in the families that I work with is that this is true. The children who are least important to their parents' security are the ones who fare best. Parents who end up saying, unconsciously or with their emotions, certainly not with their words, but parents who end up saying, I need you to be a certain way for me to be okay, end up producing the exact results in their kiddos that they are not wanting to happen. When parents have a good amount of personal identity, values assessment, clear sense of self, they don't rely on their children in order to validate their own selves. They don't ask the child to prop them up, and so they can handle a lot more discomfort from both their children as well as from their partner. And that ends up meaning that the children fare better, so do the partners. So after having a look at the ways in which triangles impact parenting relationships and what we can do about getting out of that sticky web, we can pull some information from our genogram and understand what do we need to do with some of that information, some of the triangles that we've gotten involved in our family of origin, some of the patterns that we've realized from our family of origin that are showing up in our family now. What are some things we can do in light of all that? So these are some patterns I want you to be taking in reference to your genogram as well as in your parenting relationship. First off, considering taking the I position, talking about your own self rather than talking for your partner, talking for your child, talking for other people in your family, right? Talking about what it is that you will do and you won't do. I want you to be speaking for yourself. Working very much to take responsibility for your own feelings and controlling your reactivity. Managing those chronic anxiety patterns by using self-regulation is so valuable, and all of these pieces are going to help you manage the triangles in your family and in your parenting relationship. There's some options you have, some postures you can take with your partner when it comes to some difficult conversations around parenting. Here are some of them that I would suggest, right? Humor and playfulness. Just considering how incredibly hard this is and just using your own recognition of the difficulty in that, using your flexibility, your creativity, your adaptability, and then just, like I said, recognizing the absurdity, how unbelievably hard and relentless and brutal this process is, so that we can create a bit of teamwork in your family of choice now, and how you want to be managing all after looking at your genogram and learning how much pressure has kind of been transmitted in this family emotional process. You may realize, wow, I've got a lot that I'm working with here, a lot of stress and reactivity that I'm working with. What is it that I can be doing to help manage that so that my kiddo is impacted less? Here's some items that I'd like for you to consider, right? To learn more about yourself, I want you to be attending more family events. Maybe that's for the purpose of being a social scientist and of learning what it is that you could be doing differently in your family of choice, which could be an incredibly valuable exercise. Right, also on this to-do list, I want you to be talking about secrets from all the patterns that you learned in doing your genogram, the things that you noticed that were secrets or that were patterns of addiction or mental health issues. Plan out how you want to be talking about them with your partner as well as with your children. Offering them information about their history is just as important as them understanding their medical history, right? And so how can you support your children by offering them information that you might have gained from your genogram? And then also managing your cutoff, the places in which you are completely separated, either internally, emotionally, or geographically, in which ways you're cut off from your family members. Know that staying cut off does actually take a certain amount of your energy to manage. And so, what would it be like to be in boundaried and connected communication or relationship, even with parts of your family, that there are challenges? And so if that's something that's interesting to you and you're wanting to navigate that, that's something we can work out on a call. Okay, so I want you to also take the information from your values exercise as well as from your genogram exercise and determine your 10 highest parenting values. I want your values to be leading you and allowing your partner's values to lead them. Then, when you're having conversations about parenting, like I'm going to be encouraging here in a minute, I want you to be coming at it from these perspectives, from the position of working to collaborate, to be a resource rather than rescuing, to offer support rather than working to fix, to coming at it from a curious mindset rather than assuming that you know it all, especially when it comes to your partner's values in parenting. Looking at it from a compassionate lens, understanding that their genogram has offered them particular challenges, and coming at that with a compassionate lens, as well as the blend of both personal responsibility, taking responsibility for what you can, and being willing to confront your own self so that your partner can trust they don't have to confront all the time if they know that you are going to be holding yourself to your own personal responsibility and to your own values. Okay, so I want to do a little bit of education on some different parenting approaches as well as some of the outcomes studies have showed have come as a response to these different parenting approaches so that you can make some informed decision on what you want your general posture in parenting to be. Okay, so I'm going to describe the types of parenting. So we have authoritarian, permissive, and authoritative. So these are from Diana Baumrein's research in the 1960s. And so I'll describe to you first the authoritarian approach. It focuses on absolute obedience. There's no need to explain things to children. The parent will exert their will over the children and do it with pretty small amounts of warmth or support. Okay, permissive is that you don't discipline or impose rules, that you don't really want conflict to come up with the children, and you believe that children can and should regulate their own selves, and reluctant to set boundaries and kind of ignoring misbehavior. In contrast with this third posture, which is called authoritative. Okay, so it's the not too hot, not too cold, balanced parenting. The focus is setting rules and limits, enforcing the rules, giving consequences, but pairing that with this emotionally responsive, warm, communicative, listening posture with children. Offering respect as well as encouraging children to be independent thinkers, expecting good behavior and cooperation, and having the goal of discipline to be teaching rather than punishing. Okay, so research shows that based on these different postures that there are particular outcomes associated with each of these postures. Let me describe those. For authoritarian, the kind of absolute obedience, the outcomes associated have been shown to be low self-esteem, depression, and fear of new situations. some of the outcomes with permissive, no discipline, no rules. Some of the outcomes are higher impulsivity, escalated aggression, higher risk of substance abuse, as well as higher risk of anxiety and depression. And then when we look at the outcomes associated with the third posture described, the parenting approach, the authoritative approach, the not too hot, not too cold, balanced parenting, the outcomes associated in research were shown to be better emotional health, better social skills, more resiliency, and more secure attachment. So you can see as I describe all of these different postures how the authoritative approach has been shown to have more of the outcomes that people tend to associate with kind of better mental health. And so you can listen to that. You can do your own research and decide what posture is the best fit for you. But I will be in my parenting guidance throughout the program. Most of it, if not all, has come from that authoritative approach based on the outcomes that are associated. And so one of the first things I want you to be doing is clarifying for your own self what is the approach that works for you, and within that approach, what are some of the behavioral guidelines as well as consequences that you would like to be working on in setting up a balanced household. And now for my kind of unpopular posture here is that let's move away from being a united front. Let me talk to you first about what some of the challenges of being a united front are, right? So a united front is when parents decide that they must agree on every consequence in every behavioral item, in every discipline, that they must agree on all things, and that in all ways they need to be alike and represent that to the children so that there are no personal differences between the two of them, right? And so the challenge is that one parent decides, basically, if it's a point of contention, one person has to make the decision, the other one disagrees, but then they have to do something that is pretty unhelpful, and one needs to act like they agree. They may suppress their feelings, they may quietly doubt their feelings, they may stuff them in, they may fight about their feelings, but in general, one parent decides, the other one disagrees, and then they end up acting like they agree. So we can talk about what are some of the outcomes that end up coming from this dynamic in people believing that the most supportive way to parent children is by coming at it from a united front. So let's look at what are some of the outcomes from this posture. Well, first, one of the problems this creates is that the parent that has to kind of collapse their perspective ends up moving more towards a lack of self. They end up having a lack of honesty with their own self as well as with their partner. Another challenge that it creates is that it sets up unrealistic expectations with the child. The idea is that all people will think the same at all times, and that two people can perfectly get on the same page, and that there is no conflict between the two parents, which can end up being a problem. It can end up breeding resentment between the parents because of the parent that had to kind of shut their opinion down, as well as the parent that feels like they're always the one who's having to make decisions. It can breed resentment. It also ends up diminishing the potential value of conflict, right? Conflict in front of the children is not the challenge. It's when we have reactivity, immaturity, and then have a lack of repair that ends up causing some more of the challenges. If we have healthy, calm, respectful conflict, right, we end up showing that we have the ability to have different views and to stay connected in the process. you can see how valuable that is to teaching children what you can end up gaining by being different. So you can see here all of the problems that end up getting created by this forced united front. Okay, so what's the alternative? If we decide let's not be a united front, what are some alternatives? First, being curious about your partner's position to really understand what it is that they are coming from, where they're coming from. Attempt to at least honor the way they want to walk it out. That doesn't mean that you need to change your position. You can still approach the situation the way you would prefer, but attempt to honor, at least respect the way they want to walk it out. You may learn in your curiosity that you will see you both likely want some similar things for your children. You probably want them to be good citizens, in general, to be respectful, to be connected and compassionate. Whatever it is, you likely want some similar things for your children. And when we are attempting to convince our partner to be just like us, we may miss out on some opportunity to really understand what it is that they want in their parenting journey. Right, so when children know that each of you is going to be responsible and responsive to their needs, they don't need to be anxious. They won't be unsure about who's making the rules. They'll know the parents are making the rules. They can trust each of you separately, that you're each going to be responsible and responsive. If each of you individually have secure and safe attachments to your children, the base of the support for the children is wider, it's stronger, even than having maybe overly close relationship to one parent and a distant relationship with the other parent. And so you can see in the end how you end up offering wider support, as well as reflecting the value of conflict, as well as the value of adaptability. Every teacher they'll have in elementary school is going to have a slightly different expectation of them. If they understand it's okay for authority figures to have a different perspective and different sets of expectations, the children will learn an incredible skill of adapting between how can I make sure and honor what it is the people who are in charge of taking good care of me, how can I flex and bend according to what it is that is being expected. That is an excellent skill, flexibility and adaptability. So you can see how many opportunities the kiddo can end up gaining by not having parents who have forced themselves into that united front posture. Okay, you made it through Module 7. I want you to click under and check out the homework, go through that during some connected time with your partner and process through the questions and the exercises listed, and I will see you in the next video.